Oh, how's it going? I thought we'd take a look at how to edit some photos with Google Photos, because Google Photos is a pretty good photo editor that I don't see used that often when people are posting their photos on internet, on like Twitter or Facebook or whatever. So let's go ahead and take a look at what you can do with Google Photos. So let's go to Google Photos here, and I got some bunch of photos here that you can see on my phone, and I have this pretty great photo of a whiskey bottle that I happen to like very much because it has some great detail, and if we zoom in here, you can see some great detail here, and the OnePlus 3 camera is pretty good for this sort of stuff. But now if we want to edit this photo, we want to go to the a little, I don't even know what you call these, like edit or customization options at the bottom here, and typically you have these little filters here, but I don't even want to use these because you can pretty much get the same effects but better with what you do yourself. So we're going to select the original, and then we're going to press this settings or editing button at the bottom again, and this takes us to this light color pop little menu here. And this is alright. You can already do a lot of great things with this one if you lighten up, change the colors, but this is really limiting still. I'm just gonna try to reset them to the best of my ability. The pop setting is pretty interesting. So if you turn that up, it really like makes the it sharpens the image up. Well, not really sharpen, but it makes the dark values darker and makes the light values lighter. It just makes it, well, pop a little bit more. So I don't like turning it all the way up because then it starts to look kind of, it's hard to edit after that. But I'm gonna put this somewhere around the middle. So I'm looking at the photo. I'm not looking at the like where the where the setting is. I'm looking at the photo, what it looks like, and if we go to the very bottom and at the very end, I see like what the difference is gonna be like, and I'm looking at all the sorts of little details, all the really dark spots that are gonna make my life really difficult when I'm editing. So I'm trying to set this somewhere. If you aren't sure, just put it like right down the middle, and that's gonna be pretty good. So then we go to the light setting, and if you press the little arrow next to the light setting, it opens up a bunch of additional settings, and these are the ones that are going to really help you. And here what I want to do is I'm trying to make this photo look as neutral as possible. So this photo is really dark. If you have a really light photo, then you want to set the exposure to be somewhere that really makes the photo look more neutral. But this one is a really dark one. There are a lot of speakers and monitors at the background there. So I'm going to turn the exposure, actually I'm going to turn it all the way up. So now I can see a lot more of the details of the stuff that's happening in the photo. And the contrast, well, this doesn't really help me at this point, so I'm going to turn it like all the way down, because this also allows me to see more of the detail. Like if your photo is just completely white, you don't know what is where and like what sort of details are hiding in the light values. And if it's completely dark like in this photo, then if I turn it down like this, you can't see what's happening in the black areas of the photo. So I'm just trying to make the blacks as neutral as possible so that I can edit them with more, like I can make conscious decisions as what I want to do for the photo. And now whites, this is a pretty interesting setting because when you turn it up, it also makes the photo more, it turns the warmth up. So it also makes it more red, orange, yellow, that sort of stuff. And if you turn it all the way down, you can see it goes like very desaturated. So, but I'm just gonna see, like there's this highlight at the bottom of the photo. I don't know if you can see, like around this area here, there's a highlight in the photo. So I'm trying to see like how can I minimize the amount of white in the photo. If I turn this all the way down, I can see more detail in that area. So that's helpful for me. Highlights, let's turn that all the way down to. I do this sort of motion a lot on the photo. Like I just keep going all around, because then I can see like what is this going to look like, what is this going to look like, and I can try to find a good sort of point in the photo where the values match what I have in my head, or what just looks pleasant to me. And the shadows, well, shadows is an interesting setting, because this is doing exactly what we want it to do. It's turning the it's lightening up all the dark values, but it's also lightening. It almost seems like it's turning a lot of the really bright values wider. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful with this, but let's leave it there. Blacks is a pretty obvious one, and it can really wash out your photo. And so at this point, if I just turn it down all the way, it looks really unnatural. So I don't want to do that. What I really want to do at this point, because now we have a really neutral looking photo. So what I want to do at this point is I actually want to just set the blacks where I would normally have them, like the final setting for them. So because all the dark values in photos are now really, really light, and I can see all the details there, I'm gonna now start to adding the black values there. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of them. A little bit, and you can see the difference here. Like this is about 0, and if I add just a little bit, it makes so much difference. Like you can see, it gives it so much depth, and it's a lot more easier to read. And we can do a vignette, but I don't. Sometimes I use vignettes, sometimes I don't. If you like that, you can use that. It gives it a little bit of a sense of depth, I guess. But typically, like it's different in when you're viewing a photo and there's a vignette there, you don't really see the vignette, you just like feel the effects it has. But here, when you're editing it and you're adding a vignette, it just looks fake. It looks really fake. So let's do a little bit, yeah, just to see how it looks at the end result. And now that we have this ready, we can start to fiddle around with the other settings. And one that I immediately start with is the exposure. Like, do we need the photo to be this white? Well, I'm just gonna start because it was all the way to the top. So I'm just gonna start and see what it would look like if we turn it a little bit down. And I think I like it right there. Contrast. Do we like a little bit contrast in the photo? Yeah, let's add a little bit, but not much. I mean, it was a very dark photo, yeah. White. I'm actually going to tone the highlights before I do the whites. And the reason is pretty obvious when you look at the photo, because now there are no white values in the photo. And if I start to turn the highlight up, we can start to get a little bit of those white values back. So it really gives, like, this is the full, this is the completely down. So you can see the highlight at the bottom here. It is really turning white when we turn this up. And I think, what about some other highlights? There aren't many highlights in the photo, so it's pretty much just affecting that part of the photo. Let's leave it there, and that's fine. And the white, and now if we turn this really up, you can see all the orange values, you can see all the yellows, and I'm just gonna leave it like right there. That is pretty good, in my opinion. And that's it. That's it for the light values. Now we go to the color. So press the arrow next to the color setting here, and it opens up your more of the settings for you. So first and foremost, saturation. This is a pretty tough one. If you want to make a black and white photos, you can turn the saturation all the way down, so you get a nice little black and white action going on there. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just turn it all the way up, and then I'm gonna start because now I can see all the colors that there are in the photo. So now I can start fiddling around with warmth, and this is pretty obvious. And what I'm trying to do when I fiddle around with the warmth, I'm trying to find a point of balance. And this might be different for you if you want to create a specific effect, like just make it really red or orange or something like that. Then you want to, of course, do this differently. But if you want to aim for a balanced photo that looks kind of like real life to the human eye, then you want to look at something a little bit more balanced. If you turn this all the way up, it turns just completely orange. If you turn it all the way down, it's pretty good, but I think there's too much blue in this version. So I'm just gonna grab this and try to find like a good point where there are a little bit of blue values, but not too much, like somewhere around there. That looks pretty good to me. Tint. I've heard some people just describe this as don't touch it, it's mostly for neon lights or whatever. But I don't agree. I touched this one a lot. And you don't have to go crazy with it. Just try to find a balanced output. So, if we turn this all the way up, you can start to see like the shadow is turning really red. Or, red. That is red. If you turn this all the way down, a lot of the values in the table or in the desk are turning into green. So I don't like either of those extremes. But if we steer away from the completely red, steer away from the green, and I'm just gonna fiddle around, and we're gonna see where it looks the most balanced. And I think it's right there. And it's not a big difference, but when you do a ton of tiny adjustments, it all adds up to a big final composition that looks very different from the original one. So then we got skin tone, and we can adjust this because a lot of photos have a lot of skin toned things. Like a lot of photos are about people, and when there are people in the photos, there's a lot of skin in the like faces and arms and whatever. So you have a lot of skin tones in your photos. Now in this one, we don't have them, but we can kind of see what things are sort of similar to skin tones. And when we turn this all the way down, all the way up, we can see it's turning things more orange, more red than they would usually be. So it's kind of a additional warmth setting in that sense, I think. But I'm just trying to go for the really balanced output. So I'm trying to make it look less red. So this is way too red for me. And when we go here, I mean, I like this, but it kind of starts to look unnatural. You can see at the borders of the shadow, there's a little bit of a white thing going on that's really unnaturally transitioning to the desk texture there. So I'm just gonna try to make it as low as possible without making it look unnatural. So that's pretty, yeah, that's about it. Then we have deep blue. And why do we have this? Because there are a lot of photos, like nature photos, about skies, about water, about things like that. So then you want to be able to set the blue values realistically. And in this case, we don't have a lot of blue. There's a little bit of blue. If you look at in the bottle there's a little speck of blue that comes from the light in the speaker that is behind the bottle. So we can try to set this somewhere, and I think I'm just gonna set it to 0, because then the unnatural blue of the LED light, it doesn't make the photo in general look more unnatural. So I think that's pretty good. And now if we go back and we turn the pop just a little bit down, we can save a copy of this by pressing the button at the top here, and it saves a copy, and then we can see the final product. If you compare the original one, so you can immediately see there's so much more detail, so much more, it just pops out of the picture. And I'm not saying this is the best possible output, but you have to realize there's a lot of things, a lot of settings you can set just by editing the photos in Google Photos. And that's the video, and I hope you liked it.